Slipping through the crowd gathered on the upper deck of a most extravagant yacht, Miss Gertrude Cadwalader drew in a breath and adopted an air of what she hoped would be taken for nonchalance. Her greatest desire was that no one would realize she was anything but completely composed, even though something was horribly, horribly amiss. Mrs. Davenport, the lady Gertrude was paid to be a companion to, had, regrettably, gone missing. It wasn't that Gertrude was concerned her employer had fallen overboard, or that she'd suffered some manner of terrible accident. Circumstances such as those would have been much easier to handle than the reality Gertrude was facing. That reality being the unfortunate business of Mrs. Davenport having the propensity to go missing on a far too frequent basis. On this evening, Mrs. Davenport had not been seen for over an hour. During that hour, Gertrude was all but convinced her employer had been pursuing activities that would be considered suspicious in nature by everyone except members of the criminal set. Unable to help but shudder over that idea, Gertrude quickened her pace and reached a flight of narrow steps that led below deck. Glancing over her shoulder, relief trickled through her when she realized all the guests who'd been invited to celebrate the recent engagement of Miss Parmelia Griswold to Mr. Asher Rutherford were sufficiently occupied, and not paying her the least little mind. Keeping a firm grip on the railing because the unusually large bustle attached to her behind made traveling downstairs tricky, Gertrude reached the lower deck and took a second to peruse her surroundings. To her left, she discovered a great many closed doors, a rather daunting sight, and when she looked to the right, she was less than reassured when she discovered just as many closed doors in that direction. Knowing there was nothing left to do except get on with the disturbing matter at hand, especially since the longer she lingered, the more mischief Mrs. Davenport could get into, Gertrude headed down the companionway to her right, stopping at the first door she encountered. After she edged the door open, she found a delightful stateroom on the other side, paneled in gleaming wood. Set in the very middle of the room was a four-poster bed, complete with a canopy draped in blue silk. The bed was sitting high enough from the floor to where a person could very well slip underneath it, if that person were trying to avoid detection. Marching her way across the room, Gertrude stopped directly beside the bed and leaned over, stopping mid-lean when one of the wires used to create the monstrosity on her behind took that moment to jab through the delicate material of her petticoats and drawers. Wincing, Gertrude straightened, even as she longed to rub a bottom that was now sore but impossible to reach past a bustle that seemed to be coming undone. Deciding it would not benefit her to bend over again, since she really had no liking for wires jabbing her, she cleared her throat and lowered her voice to the merest whisper. "Mrs. Davenport, are you under there?" When only silence met her ears, Gertrude debated bending over again. But when the thought sprang to mind that there was a very good chance her bustle would only disintegrate further, jabbing her numerous times in the process, she abandoned that particular debate. "Since I seem to be suffering some ill effects from a bustle you assured me had been crafted in a most expert manner, which, sadly, I'm learning was not exactly the case, I fear I'm beginning to lose all sense of a pleasant attitude," she began, in a voice slightly louder than a whisper this time. "Because of that, and because I'm certain you, Mrs. Davenport, won't want my enjoyment in this lovely evening to be ruined because of an ill humor, I'm going to suggest if you are under the bed, you show yourself immediately. You must know that no good can possibly come from skulking around Mr. Harrison Sinclair's yacht." When Mrs. Davenport did not come crawling out from underneath the bed, Gertrude made for the door, stopping a second later when she noticed a smaller door, one that might very well lead to a wardrobe. Knowing her employer had a great liking for wardrobes, and the space they provided a person when one wanted to go unobserved, Gertrude changed directions and strode across the room again, taking hold of the latch attached to the smaller door and giving it a pull. She did not discover Mrs. Davenport lurking on the other side. Instead, she found a room she'd been told was called a head instead of a retiring room, one that came complete with a marble sink with gilded taps.